This happened in a beautiful place in Illinois. Although it started with not so pleasant news from a mechanic, the end of the story will leave you feeling warm inside. You may be thinking about the time you got a call from the mechanic, and then you got charged a significant amount of money. But this was a different type of request. The person that answered the call was the deputy sheriff at McHenry County Sheriff's Office in Illinois. The department has only 400 people. According to the community, these sheriffs are described as true conservators of the peace. They usually come home with loads of stories to tell their families, but the story that this officer in particular brought to the table made everyone listen closely. The deputy has decided to stay anonymous from the storytelling. He was returning from a short vacation from protecting his community. When he came back, he knew right away that his car was acting up and that he probably needed to take it to the car repair establishment. But he didn't think any more about it. He was exhausted already, but what the mechanic told him made him get interested in the entire process. The officer also needed to replace the headlight of the passenger side of the car. The light wasn't functioning, even though it didn't look like the bulb was dead, and the light wasn't broken. It was kind of a mystery. He assumed that the day was going to be like any other day at the repair shop, but he couldn't have been more wrong. He had no idea of the actual problem his car was having. The mechanic knew that there was something weird at the moment he started checking out the car. Mechanics are used to seeing strange things daily, but nothing like this. According to Deputy Sandra Rogers of the MCSO, told reporters that the mechanic began replacing the headlight that wasn't working and noticed that one of the wires had been chewed. But what could have caused that? Well, the mechanic started coming up with answers. Usually wires being chewed is caused by rodents. They get into the car and chew away the wires. This is a massive problem for the car owner. The issue needed to be fixed because the rodent would gnaw away again if it weren't found. He started looking further, and the more he looked into the car, the more he began to have questions. This was no ordinary case of a broken headlight. The mechanic went deeper and deeper, and he finally found what was happening. It left him baffled. He started fixing the wiring when he started seeing a bunch of leaves. This was the last piece of the puzzle that let him know that rodents were the cause of the issue. He started following the leaves in the car and came even closer to the answer. The officer left his squad car at the mechanic, returning to work. He assumed his vehicle would be ready for pickup, mainly because it was a matter of replacing a broken headlight. He honestly had no idea what the real problem was. He received a phone call from the mechanic shortly after leaving his vehicle. The officer realized something was off. This was no regular repair. Now, with all the answers in his pocket, the mechanic called the officer and asked him to return to the shop. He couldn't explain it over the phone. The officer borrowed a different squad car and went back ASAP. He was curious, but that emotion changed into shock of surprise when he got there. The mechanic was anxious to tell the news to the officer. The officer was stressed, thinking the problem would cost him a lot more money. Everything was hectic. The mechanic said the officer to come closer to the car, and all he could see was a bunch of leaves. He leaned more into it and saw what was hiding in the green pile. The leaves were a nest, and there were baby squirrels. The mechanic was amazed. He'd never seen anything of that manner in his entire career. The police officer was also baffled by the whole situation. According to the mechanic, the squirrel mom managed to squeeze herself and 4 newborn babies into the car. Now it was essential to make sure that the squirrels were not harmed in any way. He started to remove the nest from the car with colossal carefulness. The baby squirrels never woke up. They were sleeping soundly when they were removed by the mechanic. But now what? The squirrels were the officer's responsibility because they were found in his car after all. They were super cute as baby squirrels get. Their eyes were still closed when they were removed, and they were all sleeping in a tucked circle. After they were out of the car, the officer took them to safety in a box. He decided to leave the table at the same exact spot where the car was parked before being moved that day. Now the issue was the mother. Would she come back? Would she come back although the nest had been contaminated? The answer came pretty quickly when he saw the mother squirrel return to the same spot. She picked them up and started taking them home. It seems like this is very common among squirrels, the fact of making homes in vehicles because of the warmth they supply. But this is kind of a risky move, don't you think? According to the Canadian Wildlife Federation, it's prevalent for them to seek shelter inside cars, especially in rural areas. But there are other things you can do to help. First, you can leave the car hood to keep your car colder and less appealing to them. You can also use taste deterrents to avoid annoying bites, and you can also apply bitter apple spray to keep them well away and safe. You can also talk with your mechanic and your vet to learn about what you may do to help keep squirrels away. You can always also follow the examples that the deputy made. They're small and defenseless, and you might want to show compassion for them. These squirrels are alive because of him. He's such a great guy.